I watched the Zuffa Boxing No. 7 card last night featuring Chris Billam-Smith against Rozicki. I'm guessing his parents' name was Rozicki. He's anglicised it, but I'm not Polish, I just live here, so I won't get involved. On the one hand, it was a pretty epic fight and, you know, definitely entertaining. But on the other hand, these Zuffa cards just look like they're put together in a leisure centre compared to like the Matchroom and the Queensberry shows. I'm sure it'll get better over time, and I'll be making a proper video about Zuffa and their plans to monopolise the sport in a couple of weeks. I think on a long enough timeline, given how aggressive the TKO group are when they want to make acquisitions and expansions, I can see them doing it within 5 years, to be honest. At least in America. I can't see there being a Golden Boy or a top ranked promotions in 5 years. I think Zuffa will sew it all up. Maybe within 10 years, you know, they'll absorb Matchroom, at least Matchroom Boxing, and Eddie Hearn will have a seat on the board of TKO Group, you know, president of international boxing operations or some corporate thing like that. And I think he's aware of that. He's a very smart businessman, as well as being a good salesman. He knows how the industry works. And I think that's why he's fighting so hard, because he wants to, you know, boost the valuation of Matchroom Boxing as high as he possibly can for an absolutely enormous buyout in 2030 or something. So I think, yeah, I mean, and that's not even counting the Saudi money that they've got, the TKO Group, you know, it's a joint partnership, and Saudi owns 60% of Zuffa Boxing. So with the Saudi money, it just becomes, you know, how fast will they do this? It'll be good for the sport in terms of the fans. You know, you'll get the fights you want to see much quicker. There won't be any delays or people ducking each other. It won't be possible. It'll be like the UFC where you have to fight. And they'll probably bring in some rule changes to make it even more exciting. But I think it'd be much worse for the fighters, because they're circumventing the Muhammad Ali Act in America, which was put in place to protect the fighters away from like the evil, you know, the evil promoter stereotype. And yeah, they're actively in the process of dismantling that. They're saying they're amending it, or adding to it. But, you know, Dana White's very good friends with Donald Trump. And that's a very strategic friendship. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of relationship. And it makes sense, right? If you want to do big things in sport in America, it's good to be friends with the president. So, and the fight to pay. I mean, the UFC has so many lawsuits coming at it left, right and centre all the time, specifically to do with the fight to pay. That's just going to start happening in boxing. Not immediately. They're doing a proper, typical monopolization strategy right now, where they overpay for the stars to get credibility in the sport and get eyeballs on their events. You know, Conor Benn getting 15 million for, we don't know yet, one fight or a few, but a lot more than most UFC fighters, even the champions, making their whole careers. And but that won't last forever. It's a very short-term play, and I can see Tyson Fury going over. I can see a lot of them, and eventually it won't be the only game in town, but it'll be the best game in town. If you want to be the best boxer in the world, you'll have to go there, especially if you want to get paid, you know, a lot. People will still get paid a lot, but it won't be anything like what they get paid now, which is why Roy Jones and some other big stars have vocally opposed the plan. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I could be totally wrong. They could not succeed, but I think at the very minimum they'll monopolise the American market, and it probably needs to happen over there, because boxing's been dead in the States, really. Apart from a couple of names, it's been dead for 10 years or more, really. The UK's been the home of boxing, and Dana White does acknowledge that. He does say that, in his words, boxing's become more of a European sport, whereas it used to be very US-centric. And I think the plan for Zuffa in the short term will be to make that happen again, with the big fight split between the States and Saudi, and then maybe the odd Wembley fight, you know, when it makes sense if there's two British fighters. But I do think on a long enough timeline, they will completely monopolise the sport. Just think that's the way sports are going. And the TKO Group, I mean, they'll probably face some kind of antitrust, anti-competitive stuff. You know, because they'll have WWE, boxing, and the UFC under one corporate banner. You'll probably see like boxers fighting in the UFC and UFC fighters crossing over into Zuffa Boxing, and the athletes will be more like hybrid combat fighters, I reckon. That's more in the future, like 20 years from now. But just some thoughts on a Sunday morning, and yeah. Overall, yeah, it's a pretty good card, the Zuffa card. I'll definitely keep watching these Zuffa fights, because every event they'll get, 1%, 2% better. And eventually the production values will be top level. I think it's just a matter of time, really, until they do some really big things. And if you're a fan, if you don't care about the politics of the sport and you don't care about the fighter pay, it'll be a good thing. It'll be a good thing with everybody under one umbrella. There'll be so much content produced, and it'll be a great product, to use more like corporate stuff that they like to speak. And yeah, that's just the way I see it going.